There are many things that make me angry when it comes to failed policy. There are many things that happened in Chicago that led me to believe it was not the place for me to live anymore. And it's a combination of factors: high taxes, limited opportunity, financial distress, crime, violence. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I grew up every day running from gunfire, but yeah, sometimes running from gunfire. I've talked about how where I grew up on the South Side, you have a hot dog stand, and it had bulletproof plexiglass with actual bullet holes pocked all in several areas because the gangbangers in the LeClaire courts would shoot for no reason. But what I can't stand right now, and actually is like a spear through my heart, is hearing that the Chicago Bears are leaving Chicago. I saw this news last week, and I'm not a big sports guy. I'm not a big football guy. I'm not a big baseball guy. But there's one thing that I do know and love, and that is my home and my traditions. And though I don't live there anymore because of what I see is largely political and economic failures, it is admittedly, again, I'm not there, but extremely painful to hear that the Bears aren't going to be the Chicago Bears anymore. And it makes me angry. I'm going to tell you something. I watched them tear down statues, these protesters, the far left, whatever you want to call them. I watched them tear down statues of Christopher Columbus, of Thomas Jefferson, of Hans Christian Hag. You probably don't even know who he is, but yeah, he was an abolitionist. Frederick Douglass. They tear these statues down. They spit in the face of what those who came before us built, of the things that we know and love. And it's funny to me to be so moved by a shocking story such as this, that the Bears are leaving. Can they stay? Well, my friends, theoretically, they could choose to be the Chicago Bears. The challenge arises due to high property taxes and an inability for the Chicago Bears to build a new domed stadium. They need to modernize. I agree that they need to modernize. They have been at Soldier Field in Chicago for half a century, my whole life. And famously, the Saturday Night Live skit of the Chicago guys with the mustaches talking about Ditka and the Bears. And y'all know the joke, even if you aren't from Chicago. There is so little, in my view, that makes Chicago what it is. I have to be honest. That growing up, I would see all this talk about the West Coast, all of this talk about the East Coast, and what did Chicago have? But we had a few things. Despite the fact that the Cubs hadn't won a World Series in forever, people still knew the Cubs, man. They were still a premium brand. And we loved the White Sox because they were a winning team. But we had the Chicago Bears, and we had our team. And I know, again, it's not like they're as bad as the Cubs, but hey, they did really well so far this past year. I mean, it was great, right? We had something that was ours that was recognizable. And I view this now as such a shocking and egregious failure of policy that is intolerable. And it's funny, I'm going to say it again. I know you're going to be like, Tim, there's a migration crisis, there's financial distress, there's gang violence. I get it. But all of these things I've known about since I was a kid, and they've been problems we've been seeking to solve. To see now, as I near 40 years old, the Bears are gone. I'm like, well, now you've just crushed one of the key things that makes Chicago, Chicago. They took away the taste of Chicago. I went back and they didn't do the fireworks for the 4th of July. And I am on the verge of flipping over my 2,000-pound table. I'm not kidding. The table that we have in here, it's like 1,600 pounds. This is the line for me. I don't know. Maybe Chicago doesn't matter the same way to you guys as it does to me. But I went back with my wife and they said, well, they do fireworks just because now. The city stopped doing it. Navy Pier just does their own private fireworks periodically. So where is the 4th of July, the taste of Chicago, and the fireworks? And you know what? Blame me. You say, Tim, you left. If you cared about it so much, why don't you stick around and fight for it? The policies of these people over the past several decades have gutted and destroyed my hometown. People say, Tim's not even from Chicago. He's from the South. I am from Chicago proper. The Midway Orange Line, Midway and Pulaski Orange Line. That's where I grew up. Garfield Ridge area. Now it's close to the suburbs, sure, it's southwest side. We had our problems. And I felt like, it was time to go. And now I'm just beyond pissed off when I see this story from the Trib. Pritzker, he basically says, guys, the Bears are leaving Chicago. Now, the question is whether or not they're going to be the Indiana Bears or the Arlington Heights Bears. But it sounds like there ain't no Chicago Bears anymore. These scumbags. And I see Donald Trump. He sends in the National Guard or DHS. I talk to my friends where we grew up with gang violence, racial violence, and all these liberals cheering on the socialist mayor who's burning it all down. It's not only his fault. We had a lot of failed mayors and a lot of failed government policy at the state level, like Pritzker. I asked my friends, are we better off with DHS going in? And yes, absolutely. I asked my friends, what would you rather have, the gangbangers going around robbing people or some National Guardsmen? They say, National Guard? National Guard ain't going to bother me. They don't bother me. So here we are, my friends. I'm going to read for you what's currently going on with the Chicago Bears, the latest development, of course, with Pritzker saying, I think we can all now recognize it's done. Now, whether or not the Bears go to Indiana, I don't know. But I'm gonna show you the failed policy that has led to this decision. And it's, in my opinion, it's not one thing. Though they cite property taxes as the principal issue, why won't the state just say the Chicago Bears got to stay in Chicago? I'm going to read the story from you here. Before we do, my friends, hey, you go to castbrewed.com and you pick up some of what we got cooking for you guys. We got Dr. Alex Stein's Big Booty Latina Love Potion. He's not a doctor, by the way, but it's a fun Valentine's Day little gag we made. It's a good medium roast coffee. And we got the new Cast Brew Vault Black Cold Brew Concentrate, lightly sweetened with simple syrup. These glass bottles, they're really awesome. I am so impressed by what the team put together by this. I don't even want to open it. It's just genuinely awesome. Tastes great. I'm a big fan. Check it out at castbrew.com. Don't forget to smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you've ever met. This may be what unifies us. When you can get Tim Pool to be like, football matters. Yeah, I got to tell you. Again, guys, I don't watch a lot of football, a little bit here and there. I can't tell you much about the star players, if at all. I've heard some names. I track it only passively. And, recently with the Super Bowl, I was in an Uber, and the driver was like, "You watching football?" And then I was like, he asked me about the Super Bowl. And then I was like, if the Bears ain't in it, I ain't paying attention. See, that's the thing. It's funny, right? If the Cubs, the Sox, the Bears, the Chicago Fire, Blackhawks, if a team from Chicago is making it, I'm interested. I just am. It's a part of who we are as Americans, I guess. We have our hometown teams. So you find yourself in some other city and you're like, I'm rooting for this team. And, we're out here in West Virginia. And so I can root for the Ravens. They're not my team, but it's like, hey, we're here, right? I got my friends. They're wearing the jerseys or whatever. Here's a Tribune. Pritzker suggests no matter how Indiana v. Illinois fight goes, the new Bears home won't be in Chicago. As Indiana and Illinois lawmakers spar over where the Chicago Bears should build a new stadium, even J.B. Pritzker acknowledged Friday the team's next home is unlikely to rise within Chicago's city limits. Quote, I think now there's a common understanding by most of the General Assembly that they're not going to be able to build in the city of Chicago. Pritzker's pronouncement came a day after Indiana lawmakers took another step toward potentially luring the Chicago Bears across the border to Hammond. We got more updates on this. As a key Indiana House committee approved a plan to create an agency that would build a new stadium for the team. I go to people and I say, they tore down a statue of Frederick Douglass. Okay, that guy was based AF. Okay, abolitionist, former slave, fighting for what it meant to be free in this country that claimed freedom but kept slaves. Man, that guy was awesome. And far left wackaloons tore his statue down, and they claim they oppose racism. Now, you may be saying, Tim, what is that all about? The point is this. How many of you watching, honest question, don't really care all that much, like you generally understand, but how many of you are deeply moved by the threat that the Bears could leave Chicago? This is the point. The failed policies, the protests, like all the protests, they are bad. They should be called out. I mean, like free speech and all this is fine. I'm saying the riots, tearing down statues, destroying our culture, destroying our history. But when you have politicians over the last 100 years, failed Democrat policy, threatening our legacy, threatening what it means to be, I'm sorry, it crossed the line for me. I'm going to say it again. I used to go to the Taste of Chicago. We'd get food. It's not like it was there forever, but we made something and I grew up with it. We used to go to the lake on the 4th of July to see the fireworks, and they've gotten rid of it, and I am shocked. I really, really am. This is what I was talking about the other day. I was debating Andrew Heaton on the issue of tariffs, and I said, they come to me and tell me, Tim, if you make your skateboards in China and sell them here, you'll save $5 a board. And I said, I don't want $5 a board. I want my country back. But you know what? Times they change, I guess. Maybe it's stupid of me. No, I understand. Things change. They don't last forever. The shopping, I used to go to Dominic's when I was a kid on Archer Avenue, and it went out of business a long time ago. I get these things. We used to have a Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video is gone. It's now an extended boutique called Peaches. Actually, one of like the premier like boutique clothing stores or something like this for like ladies, and I don't even know what it's about. All I know is people rave about it, even far, far away on the south side where I grew up. I get it, man. They tore down the playground at the school I went to, and they built an expanded school, got bigger. All of that I get. But we have our team, we have our history, we have our statues, we have our flag, and all that's happening is the left is burning it all down. So I tell you this, I can come on my show and I can bitch and moan about why tearing down a statue was wrong, but you take my hometown team away, and I am going to start losing it. Quote, for at least a year and a half, there's been a significant effort by the Bears as well as Chicago lawmakers and others to try to figure out if the Bears could build what they need to build in the city of Chicago. They looked and they I think gave the old college try to find a place within the city of Chicago, and they couldn't. So basically, here's what's going on. I asked Grok to give us the issue, right? The main Chicago Bears tax issue revolves around the team's push for a new stadium in suburban Arlington Heights, likely where it's going, or maybe Hammond, Indiana. So they own land in Arlington Heights, and they want to build a privately financed domed stadium in the surrounding development. They're seeking the key tax-related concessions from Illinois to make it viable. If they go to Arlington Heights, I'm upset. If they go to Indiana, I'm pissed. The Chicago Bears in Arlington Heights might still try and keep the name, but it still is just sad. Guys, can't we figure something out for this? Here is the problem. The people of the city don't care enough. They don't care enough. Okay, I'm going to rant too much on this one. Let me give you some of the facts. I know many of you are sitting here saying, like, just tell me what's going on. Without special legislation, the Bears could face massive annual property taxes in the range of $100 to $200 million once the stadium's in full effect because taxes are so high. The team has requested about $850 million in public funds for essential support for their $2 billion stadium. Yeah, if you build it in Chicago. Frustrated by slow progress in Illinois, the Bears have explored a competing proposal in Indiana where lawmakers passed legislation just recently offering up to $1 billion in public funds to lure the team to Hammond. I will not tolerate this. Indiana House sends environmental deregulation. Chicago Bears stadium bills back to the Senate. A narrowly divided vote to roll back portions of their environmental code, plus a high-profile bid to lure Chicago Bears across state line, anchored a deadline day push. Lawmakers also narrowly set up an end of the session negotiations. So they've also narrowly approved a controversial proposal to ban public camping, blah, blah, blah. The point is this. They're moving forward. One of the most contentious votes of the day came on Senate Bill 277, an environmental policy policy overhaul that passed a House 53-45 with 16 Republicans joining Democrats in opposition. The proposal makes dozens of changes to Indiana's environmental regulations, including replacing certain mandatory requirements. Supporters argued the measure modernizes outdated language, blah, blah, blah. We get the point. The point is ultimately that they want to bring the Chicago Bears to Indiana. And I'm going to break down for you the argument I've made for some time and what I can't stand about all of this stuff that's going on. I've got this story, I believe that's, here we go. This is from May 20th, 2024. Why so many black Chicagoans are frustrated by the migrant crisis. I'm going to give you a general story, analogy, metaphor, whatever you want to call it. The year is, 1750. And a man stakes a claim in a piece of land, and there's no one around for miles. He stakes his claim, builds his farm with his family. His family helps him build a new farm for his new family, and then they live. And over time, others move nearby, and needs arise, and you get the formation of a small town. There's a marketplace in the city center where the farmers can come and trade wares and gears, and you get a small town. Eventually, you build up to around 100 or so people, and now it's maybe the late 1700s, early 1800s, and a man says, let's come together and make some recreation, and they make a field. I don't know when the first year for baseball was, though, but we'll use baseball as an example. First year of, I think it was the 1700s, baseball in the U.S. I want to get the exact number for my story. 1846, the first officially recorded organized game. 1792, indeed. I knew I had my dates right. So it's the late 1700s, early 1800s, and a man says, hey, this game the kids are playing, we should bring everybody together and we should play, right? So they create a baseball field. A couple generations go by, and you start getting your first organized baseball game now. It's just pre-Civil War. Years go by, and now you've got actual organized baseball, and there are teams in the community. And one day in this bustling town now with over 1,000 people, they go to a city hall meeting. Town hall meeting, and they say, what should we do? We have small limited public funds. We have a grant, and we need to do something, right? And a man stands up and says, listen, my great-great-granddaddy helped come together in this town and build this field where we all play baseball together. And I got to say, the old scoreboard's falling apart. Grass is not being mowed properly. I think it's time we revitalize this and make sure that our kids can have what our grandparents gave to us. All in favor. 79%, yay, everyone cheers. The other half are like, well, do we need baseball? But everyone cheers and claps, and they say, we're going to all pitch in, we're going to put together, and we're going to fix up this baseball field. And it is revitalized. A legacy of the people who built this town, giving something beautiful to their children and saying, it was nice for me, I want you to have this and more. Well, now we get into the modern era. It's the 90s, and a man goes to town hall, and now there's 10,000 people in this big town. It's not the biggest, especially for the 90s. And they say, look, I know we're not the biggest town. I know we're not the best, but we do have our town baseball field, local school, and the kids play there all day, and I think it's time that we allocate some funding and revitalize it just like our great-great-grandparents did and their grandparents before them, and everyone claps and cheers. Overwhelming fanfare. And they say, we're going to put the money towards fixing up our baseball field. It's small, I know. Well, now the year is 2020. And town hall once again. And a man says, 30 years ago, my grandfather came before you. And he said, we're going to fix up this baseball field. I think it's high time we do the same. And so sure enough, everybody claps and cheers and they say, yay. And the vote fails. 47 to 53. And they decide they're not going to spend money on the baseball field. In fact, they're going to build a new Migrant Welcome Center. And the reason why? Well, over the past 20 years, the city's become a haven for Haitian migrants that were brought in by the various administrations. They invited these people in and said, we're going to center all of you in this small town. Now, the Haitian migrants outnumber the voting bloc, not the actual population, but the voting bloc. Why? Well, these individuals have interests. They're not wrong to have interests. And when they sit there looking at each other, hearing that the town is going to spend money on a baseball field, they go, what? We don't need a baseball field, nor do we care about baseball. We, as migrants, know how hard it is for our friends and family to come here and not understand how to work and a place to go. We need a migrant facility and welcome center. And so they vote. And that's what you get. And what you get is your legacy and what your great-grandparents built and what your family and friends talked about and the games that you used to go to, gone. The park starts falling apart. Eventually, people stop going. And I saw this happen when I went on the 4th of July back to my hometown in Chicago. And I went to Vidham Park, and it was the 4th of July, and nobody was playing baseball. Nobody was outside. The weeds were overgrowing in the baseball fields, and there were soccer goals. I don't mind soccer. We got the Chicago Fire. It is what it is. But what happened to when I was a kid? All the kids running around and playing. Every street, you'd see kids goofing off. There's fireworks, there's barbecues, smoke filling the air. Why can't the future generation have these things? And don't get me wrong, there's cultural problems that we engaged in. Many of our kids are on the internet. Many of us didn't have kids. I get it. You know, the reality is I should have stayed there. Theoretically, like if things were going well, I would have stayed there. I would have had a family of my own around my early 20s. And then this 4th of July, my teenage kids would be grilling alongside me and they'd be playing baseball. They'd probably be skateboarding. But to be honest, I'd probably have my kids do Little League or something and that stuff. It's America. We'd still go to baseball games. Went to one recently. It's so awesome. I love it. Always will. Not even a diehard sports fan for organized sports. Baseball, it's just so fun. We got a box for everybody in the company. We hung out. We had nachos. We had hot dogs. It was a lot of fun. To watch the game was a lot of fun. And what was it? I think it was like the Sox at the Nationals or whatever. I think the Sox lost. It is what it is. This is where we're at right now. The failures of policy and the disinterest of the people of Chicago. Because the point is this. If all of the people of Chicago really wanted to make sure the Bears would stay, this would not be happening and there would be no question. I don't fault Indiana for saying we're gonna have the Hammond Bears. I know the Bears will still exist, but this is a Chicago institution, my friends. A Chicago institution.
The Bears.
A Chicago institution. And so, I ask why it is that people in Chicago are in distress. Why it is that my family all left. If they didn't go to the suburbs, they just left entirely. Why I have many friends who left. I was talking to my wife recently about how, honestly, it'd be great to go back. You know why? Growing up there, I remember the summer nights. I remember the smell of springtime and the smell of fall. There's nice residential neighborhoods where you can go trick-or-treating. You can't really do that out here. Houses are just so far away. No one trick-or-treats. And I got a kid now, and I'd love to have my kid go trick-or-treating. And then we'll check the candy for razor blades. And so we've talked about how we like the weather. I know it's too hot in the summer and it's too cold in the winter, but then you get summer and winter sports. Although skiing's not really that great. But we like the snow. We grew up there. I like when it's snowing on Christmas morning. I like presents under the tree. I want my children, I want future generations to experience all that was great, all of the good that we held, and we can do away with the bad. Unfortunately, you know what I see? I see the bad is only getting worse. Map shows U.S. cities with most people in financial distress. Let's see who ranks number one. We don't need the bulletin. Let's see. Chicago had the largest year-over-year increase in the share of people with distressed accounts and the largest spike in the average number of distressed accounts per person. On top of that, it ranks first in Google search interest for both debt and loans, signaling heightened demand for borrowing. We got this Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, new low approval ratings. It's just failure and failure and failure. And a city council vote on $70 million in migrant funding highlighted the situation faced by communities like South Shore. Migrants have been resettled in black communities where people have been fighting for decades for development and resources. And this was the point, exemplified so perfectly. How over the last year, I have been talking about this story of the baseball field and how the migrants, they have their interests, and I respect it. I really do. You know, the people who come here from other countries that know America is great, when asked what do they want, they're going to say resources for us. Everyone will vote for their interests. I get it. But why is it good for us to welcome in people who will say your traditions, your world, the good and beautiful things that were created by your forefathers, your ancestors, your grandparents, they are not worth it anymore? I reject that outright. And they're funneling 70 plus million for welcome centers and migrant facilities, and they can't cut a deal so that our hometown team can stay, can be a Chicago team. Now, I'm going to stress this, I understand. Chicago's got limited space availability. The Bears bought in Arlington Heights, so I stress this again. I lament the Arlington Heights Bears. They'll probably still call it the Chicago Bears. I'll roll my eyes. We drive down 55 in a Lakeshore Drive, and there's Soldier Field. That's the place. I know it wasn't always there. I know that it was hard fought to get there in the first place. These things, just because they were built once before, doesn't mean they will remain always. But I don't see a good and legitimate reason why we cannot, as the city of Chicago, cut a deal and make it happen, whatever that deal may be. Because again, I'll stress this. If the city actually cared about what it meant to be in Chicago, if the city actually cared what it meant to be an American, they'd move mountains for this. The truth is, you can just do things. And they could easily make this happen. You may say, Tim, there's not enough land. One of the things Pritzker was talking about, I'll jump back to the story, is he says it's overly dense, right? Let me see if I can find that quote. He says he was at a meeting. Let's see. Bears representatives have repeatedly assured the village that news regarding Indiana does not mean they have made a decision on a final site location. The news from Indiana underscores the need for urgency on matters for Illinois leadership to work towards passing the mega projects bill. I hope, I beg, and I pray that the reality is Indiana's providing some leverage to force Illinois to get their act together. Here's what he said. For at least a year and a half, they gave the old college try. Transportation and a sufficiently large site are very hard to find in a dense city like the city of Chicago, Pritzker said. So that's why I think we're down to the question of whether they're going to build in Arlington Heights or they're going to build something in the state of Indiana. It's intolerable if they go to Indiana. I'd appreciate the institution will still exist, fine. But Arlington Heights is even unacceptable. Guys, again, I know it's difficult, wishful thinking, but if this really was a home, a city, and a people, they'd say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You start buying up property. How much space do you need? And we make it happen. It's going to cost you $3 billion. If the city of Chicago was a unified people that believed in their institutions, they'd say we can do it because a community can do it. My point is ultimately this. If there is a will, there is a way. And today, there is no will. We are a fractured people. We are a struggling people. We've got, Chicago. What is it? Where did that story go? I had another story talking about, actually, is it this one? Oh, no. This is the protesters in Chicago. Again, affluent white female liberals protesting against the migration issue. This is the point. If we were a people that deeply cared, but we're not. So I can tell you just this. It's a distressed place. Chicago. Overall ranked number 1. People are upset. The city is fragmented culturally, politically. The taxes are insane. There's reasons why I left, and it breaks my heart. There's political corruption to an extreme degree, and that's been the case for some time. And it's why I don't know that I could live in the city of Chicago. I told you guys the story about my friends and I were pulled over at gunpoint by Chicago police, and they tried to frame us. So this is not a joke. It's not a fact. NBC reported on it. They claimed we matched a description. I'll give you the quick version. My friends were there in 2012 during a NATO protest, just covering the protest. We get pulled over by around 12 vehicles, some of them unmarked black vehicles. They illegally search the vehicle and find nothing, and then tell us to get lost. By the time we make it back to the apartment we're staying at, the doors open, the lights are on. Long story short, an individual that requested a ride from us tried to put drugs in our car. He was being told by an individual who was dating a cop. We heard from friends the police scanner was looking for our vehicle. And the ultimate conclusion was actually quite simple. If we had allowed this individual to put drugs in our car under false pretenses, we didn't know the person was trying to do it. They were trying to just grab a bag and put it in our car. We didn't know what was in it. And I said, absolutely not. Had I just said, yeah, grab whatever you want, come for a ride. If we got pulled over, prison. Prison for all of us. And you can watch the story on NBC News where they talk about how this happened to us. And I can go into more detail and provide more information on it. But for the political corruption in Chicago, which has been historic, I just thought it's not a place that I could go right now as someone who challenges the corruption itself. I'd walk in and it's as simple as, oh, look, we found drugs. Prison, 4 years, guaranteed, mandatory minimum. I don't trust going to Chicago is safe in this political environment, especially with what you see with Pritzker and Trump and all of that stuff. Now, maybe you can call it paranoia. I know it's not. Because again, there's video of me, Luke Rudkowski, my friend Jess, getting pulled over, surrounded at gunpoint, where they illegally search our vehicle. It happened. It's a corrupt place, and it's sad, because it's where I come from. But now what I see is the city doesn't have a shared identity. They don't care about the Bears. If they really did, they would move mountains. Come hell or high water, the Chicago Bears would be in Chicago. And there's ways to pull it off. But the truth is this. Let me just say one of the easiest things a city could do, especially Chicago, with as much money as it makes, is secure a couple billion for a stadium. Indeed, they could do it. And they could do it in the city limits. But if there's no interest and no one really cares all that much, then they'll go to Arlington Heights where the land is cheaper and there's less people. Arlington Heights. I got no beef with Arlington Heights, okay? I've skated there. I have friends from there. We all know Arlington Heights. Indiana. I respect you, Indiana. The fact that Indiana's moving mountains to try and get the Chicago Bears, it breaks my heart that it might work. Because Indiana's basically saying, we know what we need to do to get a team as storied as the Bears. So I'm pissed. Maybe I'm just a dying old man watching what once was go away. It is what it is, I guess. But I really do blame a variety of things. We are weak culturally. We have generations of weakness, and we have cultural fragmentation. Perhaps, many of you may say, Tim, sometimes it just happens. Culture decays. Indeed. Indeed. Perhaps no one's to blame. There's always going to be fault somewhere. So, best of luck, Chicago Bears. The Bears may just be the Hammond Bears. Who wants to say that? Nobody. It is what it is. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I could probably talk for like 7 years about this and why it pisses me off. So I'll just wrap it up now. I usually go about 30 minutes on this show. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thank you so much. And we will see you tonight, 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL.